South Africa is not on the brink of collapse. It is collapsing, slowly, carefully, under the supervision of its ruling elites. This is a managed collapse strategy, the deliberate acceptance of economic stagnation and slow degradation to protect existing wealth structures. Under South Africa's managed decline, public investment, industrial policy, or breaking up monopolies have been ruled out. Instead, the government embarks on minimalist crisis management, designed not to solve economic and social decay but to spread it out over decades. The pattern is not difficult to see: budget cuts gradually hollow out the state, avoiding dramatic collapse but eroding public services over time. Alongside this, the government regularly announces reforms with no meaningful implementation, creating the illusion that change may be around the corner. Simultaneously, the government prioritizes appeasing foreign investors, managing unemployment, adhering to fiscal responsibility and inflation targeting as sacred offerings to global finance capital. Meanwhile, limited redistribution through expanded grants and public sector jobs serves as a pressure valve to suppress anger without challenging inequalities. These measures are designed to maintain stability, not to transform society, ensuring the existing power structures remain intact while avoiding outright revolt. Contrary to popular opinion, this is not incompetence. It is the cold, rational outcome of the early 1990s elite settlement, under which economic justice was abandoned in favor of market liberalization, deficit control, and the appeasement of international capital. The result was that old money remained untouched, a thin layer of black elites was created to give the system a new face, while masses of South Africans were left landless, jobless, and marginalized. Heavily policed, placated, but never empowered. For a time, this slow and managed decay was mildly disrupted. The presidency of Jacob Zuma, 2009 to 2018, the so-called 9 wasted years, marked a brief period where the 1990s consensus began to wobble. Make no mistake, this wasn't a radical departure from neoliberalism, but it was still an irritation to capital. Zuma, though not a dyed-in radical, proved reluctant to fully cooperate with the establishment's neoliberal program. Under his tenure, there were some gestures toward radical economic transformation which threatened the delicate balance of elite interests. This reluctance to fully cooperate with the managed collapse led to state capture, widely condemned as a moral and governance crisis, but in reality, it was a regime change tool, an establishment-led counterattack to restore the aggressive neoliberalism of the Thabo Mbeki era. Furthermore, state capture became the successful justification for purging a wayward faction of the ANC and reimposing the orthodoxy of austerity, fiscal consolidation, and investor appeasement. Still, something had to replace the 9 wasted years. Enter Ramaphoria. The so-called New Dawn of 2018 was never meant to be a real renewal. It was a carefully constructed public relations operation, driven by corporate media and business elites, to rehabilitate the decaying order. Cyril Ramaphosa, a billionaire beneficiary of the 1990s capitulation, was cast as a savior who would clean up corruption and malfeasance, but without touching and disrupting the core economic architecture. The New Dawn was never about transformation. It was about buying time, stabilizing investor confidence, calming the restless middle classes, and muting popular anger, all while allowing the slow degradation to continue. However, by 2024, Ramaphoria had exhausted its illusions. Popular anger grew and the ANC had outlived its usefulness. This presented a threat of true political revolution and opening for unpredictable, possibly radical forces. So, the establishment engineered its next survival mechanism, the GNU. Presented as a patriotic act of unity and maturity, the GNU was, in reality, a defensive pact among elite factions, an agreement to stabilize the architecture of managed decline by broadening its political base. The ANC, the Democratic Alliance, DA, and a gaggle of minor parties formed a coalition not to rescue South Africa from collapse, but to share that collapse more equitably among themselves. There was no bold program of reconstruction proposed. The GNU had zero interest in decisively confronting the monopolies that have strangled the economy for decades. No breakaway from austerity, deindustrialization, or financial dependency was envisioned. Instead, it promised stability for the managed collapse. The Democratic Alliance, long a loyal opposition within the boundaries of the neoliberal consensus, found itself elevated to the status of co-manager of decline. It had built its brand by posturing as a cleaner, more efficient steward of austerity. Now, the DA could exercise real influence not to overturn the system, but to harden it. The GNU was thus not renewal, but refinement, the managed decline of South Africa insulated from the rage of a population left to fend for itself. Under the GNU managed decline, infrastructure will not be revitalized, because real national development might threaten austerity. Instead, decay will be tolerated, even welcomed, as part of slow-motion privatization, benefiting the very elites who profit from the system's erosion. Even the opposition forces have been absorbed into the theater of managed decline. Their task is not to overthrow the system, but to legitimize it, to shout, posture and promise, but ultimately lead the masses back into the dead end of legalism, elections and false hope. This strategy is similar to the fable of the boiling frog: drop a frog into boiling water and it will leap out. Raise the heat slowly, and it will sit calmly until it is cooked alive. South Africans are being boiled slowly, the temperature rising incrementally, the pressure intensifying unnoticeably. This is not governance. It is a curated decay to preserve old elite interests. The managed decline may avoid a spectacular collapse for now, which may be good enough for some people. But it guarantees a different kind of death, the death of hope. The death of any future beyond mere survival.
My question is, why do they want to collapse the country? If the country collapses and turns into a failed state, doesn't that threaten their financial interests in the country, or am I missing something? Why is their end goal the destruction of South Africa?
Answer by Sizwe. You know how mine owners don't care how the living conditions are in and around the mine? South Africa is a giant mine whose sole purpose is maximum extraction. All you need to do is keep it barely alive, not necessarily healthy and vibrant.
So, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this story alive. Until next time, remember, our struggle has always been about the land.
The most important person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs.